Mapping a woke-free future. A survivor of Mao's Cultural Revolution brings her message to Minnesota. Next. Xi Van Fleet is the author of Mao's America, A Survivor's Warning. Xi, thanks for joining me. Good to see you.
Well, thank you for having me.
You're going to be part of a live online conference at the end of the month, sponsored by the Child Protection League. It's called Mapping a Woke-Free Future. People can go ahead and register now for that. It is a new year. President Trump headed back to the White House. Is this really a possibility, do you think? What does a woke-free future actually look like?
Yeah, I know. It sounds really, really interesting, but I have to give you bad news. We're not going to have a woke-free world. And the reason is simple. As long as we have people who want to be taken care of by the government, as long as we have people who want to be victim, because victim gives them power, and as long as we have people, the so-called intellectuals, who feel like they know better way of living and they're going to show the rest of us how to live, we're going to have woke. And woke, in another word, is cultural Marxism. And I'm very familiar with, because I was born in China, lived through Mao's Cultural Revolution. Cultural Revolution is what we have here in America.
For those who don't know your story as you're sharing here, you really kind of came on the scene just a few years ago. I feel like you were one of the very few people speaking out at the time. You started to see many similarities in this country to what you grew up with in China. Your public comments at a Virginia school board meeting on CRT, they went viral back then. But talk a bit more about your background for our audience.
Yes, I was born in, I always say this, I was born into the slavery of communism. I was born knowing nothing about freedom. And I was born into a world that I thought my life and my fate is totally in the hands of the party. And I thought that was just normal. And so when I was in my first grade, that's when the Cultural Revolution started. It lasted for 10 years. By the time I graduated from high school, and that's all I know. That's all I know. Cultural Revolution. And when 2020 hit us, a lot of people just bewildered and just wonder what was going on in our country. But everything looks so familiar to me because I lived it once before. And what we are experiencing in America is America's Cultural Revolution. And everything is very, very similar. They're not the same, but you can see they are from the same source. They are from the same Marxist playbook.
And speaking of that playbook, I think that it's almost here in Minnesota. We've seen Marxism in a way up close. We had the George Floyd riots, COVID lockdowns, even the curriculum in our schools. So many have been waking up to that and questioning and pushing back. But much of it was exposed, I think, after Governor Tim Walz made it into the national spotlight. What is your thought on his well-documented connections to China, our governor here of Minnesota?
I think he did us a favor to see someone and who absolutely a true believer of Marxism, socialism, made into the presidential ticket. There are a lot of people who are pro-CCP's China. A lot of them just turned a blind eye to the totalitarianism in China because they want the money. They want to go there and make a fortune. But Walz is different. He's a true believer. He really, really liked the system. And he made all those trips while taking the students there to learn what? To learn a better system. That's what he told his students. In China, he said, everyone had the same, and that's socialism. No, in China, everyone did not have the same. We never had the right, what we take for granted, the right to free speech, to the same kind of a legal justice. We know it's always controlled by the party. And now today, after all this so-called economic reform, who got rich? Those in power. And that is what happened. That's not the same. He absolutely, really, he is a Marxist and socialist. And to me, it's even more dangerous.
Speaking of that danger, I think another recent case, everything surrounding J6 highlights what has happened in this country as well with political prisoners. I know recently you traveled to Washington, D.C. to be outside the Freedom Center, as it's called, outside the D.C. jail. You were pictured with Ashley Babbitt's mother on X here. What was that experience like for you to be there? And here's a mom who's been driving 70 miles, I understand, there every single day for the last 3 years.
You will see a lot of Chinese there. Why? Why we care so much? Because we've seen it before. That's what happened in China. When you speak against the government, when you speak, you don't have to even speak against the government. When you speak something the government doesn't like, you end up in jail. And that is political prisoners that we're so familiar with, we grew up with. And now we see it happening in America. And that is why we feel so strong about it. Since, 3 years ago, there are Chinese people there every night, especially this lady, Jennifer Zhang. She has been going there every day for the past 3 years, traveling 70 miles one way. It's just unbelievable because we know this is not the America we want to live in.
Back to this upcoming online conference, Xi, mapping a woke-free future. What is the number one thing that people can do to make a difference? I think many people feel helpless, like it's watching a runaway train at this point.
And it's, to me, the best way or the only way is to educate America. Educate Americans about the true history of communism, and especially about Chinese communism, especially about China's Mao's Cultural Revolution. Only when we know the past can we understand the present and can we stop the history from repeating. And too many Americans do not know. And it's not that they don't know, it's that they're not taught. And why they're not taught? That's the good question. They are not taught because whoever controls the educational system do not want them to know. And to me, that is the key to fight wokeism. And take me as an example. Why nothing surprised me in 2020? Because I've seen it before. Because I know it is the repeat of history. If Americans know the history of communism, understand cultural Marxism, they can see through the lies. And then we can really have a chance to fight back. And of course, in order to do that, we have to take back our educational system and our media and our country in general.
Yeah, there's a lot of work to do, no doubt about that. And speaking of that, just the education system, that is part of the playbook, right? Separating children from parents, tearing down history, DEI. It's all part of the plan that you've lived through before.
Yes, and history especially. And so going back, to what to China's history, the first thing the CCP did is taking over the educational system, and what they paid most attention is the textbook of history. Why? They know the importance. So from day one, they rewrote and create fictional history. That's what I learned growing up in China. And because they know those who control the past control the future, and those who control the present control the past. I think it's Orwell said that. It is so true. So teaching real history is what we should do. And in order to do that, we have to take back our educational system.
I want to say you do need to register for the conference on this website you see here. You can watch it live or on demand. Joy Pullman, the executive editor of The Federalist, will also be a part of the conference. But Mapping a Woke-Free Future, it's coming up on Saturday, January 25th. Xi Van Fleet, thank you so much for all you do. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
That will do it for this episode of Liz Collin Reports. We'll see you next time.